YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I've mentioned over the years that we have to pay attention in America to what is happening in other countries, because a new world order, all these countries are going to have the same rules. They are going to be ruled by the same politicians who are all under the same umbrella, the same control system, which will be all through the digital enslavement grid that they are building out. I talked about China with the social credit score. We've obviously paid attention to the nightmare that is China, where they are literally tracking every movement, everything you say online, and it's all about enforcing lawfulness, not lawlessness, lawfulness, corporate compliance, and social trustworthiness through data aggregation, of course, and blacklisting people who question the government and rewarding people who pretty much, when you say rewarding people who follow what the government says, people who enjoy getting tasered in the nuts, because the more the government takes from you and enslaves you and tells you that you can't go out after curfew and you can't eat meat and you can't have a certain amount of clothing in your home and you have to ration the amount of water, the people who comply to that might as well have themselves tasered in the genitals every single day. Because if you're okay with the government having control over all of your movements and all of your actions, then you are nothing more than a worthless, useless sheep bull. Let's make that really clear. And that's what's going on in China. But we need to pay attention to what's going on in Ireland. And it's twofold, right? We know that Ireland is divided into two distinct jurisdictions, and that's exactly what they're playing out here in America based on politics. There's the Republic of Ireland and there's Northern Ireland, okay? They're two separate parts of Ireland. It's one country with two separate jurisdictions, right? Hunger Games, so to speak. They're doing that in America. If you haven't noticed, it's called the left-right paradigm with Republicans and Democrats. But what we need to pay attention to is the protests and what continues to go on in Ireland in regards to fuel prices. This is all part of the ongoing war, which is really the war of Agenda 2030, as I've called it. It is completely fabricated. The only people who are casualties in this war are the civilians. They are the casualties of Agenda 2030. And part of that agenda is rationing, moving from fossil fuels and gasoline over to electric, which is the control grid, to carbon footprint eventually being enforced. So all of this is happening while Donald Trump is saying that the U.S. will blockade the Strait of Hormuz. And again, this is going on over and over. One day Trump says the war is over, the next day the war is not. This is, of course, part of the money manipulation and the economical impact of Trump. Anything he says causes the stock market to plummet or to rise and oil prices to go one way or the other. This part of destroying the economy. The whole thing is about sabotage. That's the name of the game. What you're seeing is government collusion across the world in order to sabotage nations and government infrastructure to bring in Agenda 2030. And if you haven't seen what's going on in Ireland, let me show you, because this is stuff we all have to pay attention to. There is no fuel. They are not allowing farmers to get fuel. There's also a tax on top of the fuel with the rising prices that is part of the carbon tax in Ireland, which is coming to America, which is already here, just people aren't paying attention to it. The carbon tax, of course, is close to, I'll get into it later in the videos, pay attention because it's important. It's close to almost $1 extra in carbon tax, let alone other taxes that we all pay, let alone the price of fuel, that they are forcing people in Ireland to not be able to afford gas and, of course, push them over to electric. So this is what's going on in Ireland. There's massive protests going on. Of course, the government does not actually care. People are divided over the issue because, of course, some people think it's too extreme, while other people obviously see what's coming with the government having too much control and deciding whether or not farmers can actually farm. This is all part of the control agenda. Control the energy, control the food sources, all of it. They want total control of your lives. So take a look what's going on in Ireland and keep in mind this will spread to other countries like America.
Protests over the cost of fuel are continuing for a fourth day, with blockades in place at locations around Ireland. Taoiseach Micheál Martin has said that the blockades have caused a situation whereby Ireland is on the precipice of turning oil away from the country in the middle of a global oil supply crisis. In Cork, protesters allowed 2 tankers in to be filled at the Whitegate oil refinery, but a standoff with the Garda public order unit took place when a 3rd fuel tanker arrived. Government ministers met with representative bodies of farmers and hauliers to discuss further supports. 4 fuel protesters were denied entry to the meeting. It's estimated that by tonight, around 500 service stations across the country will run out of fuel.
A standoff between protesters and the public order unit in Whitegate in East Cork this afternoon. Gardaí trying to escort a 3rd tanker into the country's only oil refinery based in East Cork. An oil tanker remains off the coast of Galway today. The port remains blockaded.
I don't think people out there perhaps realise the gravity of the situation, and particularly as it pertains to Whitegate and to the ports. We are now on the precipice of turning oil away from the country in the middle of a global oil supply.
Road users are feeling the impact of the blockades, both at the pumps and with delays on a large number of national routes. Healthcare workers also affected, and delivery service DPT Ireland has temporarily suspended services in the Republic for tomorrow. Motorists on the M50 have been faced with lane closures and delays, while O'Connell Street and O'Connell Bridge are still blocked.
I think this protest could continue on, maybe for another week, maybe 2 weeks. If it takes a month, we are prepared to sit here. If it takes to close the country down, we'll close the country down.
Has it been difficult to get around doing deliveries over the last couple of days?
It has, but this has to be done. So we'll go with it, whatever it takes. We started 3 or 4 hours earlier in the morning, so to get it done, but we got it done.
What are they hoping to achieve? And where's the government? The government is showing no action whatever. Yeah. So we're hostages to, breaking the law.
I have mixed views of it, really. I think they're overdoing it. They have a point, but they are overdoing it, so.
We need another paper.
Some demonstrators took their message to Leinster House this afternoon, coinciding with a nearby meeting between government ministers and representatives from farming and haulier groups.
Still feeling very apprehensive here. There's a lot riding on this meeting, so.
After confusion over whether protest organisers could attend the meeting, they were turned away from the Department of Agriculture.
We got on the train today, and when we got as far as the door, our names aren't on the list.
The National Emergency Coordination Group met today with concerns raised over a threat to supply chains and to the provision of essential services, including emergency response services and public transport. Diane Connor, RTE News.
So, of course, fuel price protests causing chaos, which is their word, right? Order out of chaos is the motto of the Freemasons. It's the motto of these Satanists who are members of secret societies. Order out of chaos. So fuel price costs caused chaos in Ireland and spread to Norway. As you can see, the casket that shows rest in peace, Ireland. They are causing chaos to bring in the order they want. Even military tanks are being seen around Ireland. The National Defense, of course, saying that the tanks in the streets are just training exercises, right? We're not using force on any civilians, when in fact you can see countless videos all over the internet from people filming from their phones and uploading it to social media of force being used on people who are protesting peacefully about everything going on in Ireland, of course, blockading roads, etc. And it all comes down to the fuel issue right now, right? Which is part of Agenda 2030. They want to move to electric. And it's not because it has anything to do with the climate. Because remember, all the stuff you've heard about climate change is all a hoax. It's been a grand scheme. And the stuff you see with the weather that might make you think that, hey, climate change is causing weather manipulation. No, the government controls the weather. There are thousands of patents, as I've shown you over the years. The videos are available on my website at callforanuprising.com. If you're not familiar with weather modification, get familiar. They have the ability to control the weather. You can't get that through your mind because it's been ingrained in your brain since you were a child that you can't control Mother Nature, right? Remember all those little sayings that we were all told? You can't control Mother Nature, can't predict Mother Nature, right? But the Weather Channel can tell you 7 days out if a blizzard is coming when it's not even on the actual, supposed Doppler radar that they show us. It's because it's man-made. They've told us since Kennedy, since Lyndon B. Johnson, right? He who controls the weather controls the world.
We shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control.
It lays the predicate foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
So part of the illusion with climate change and this hoax is that people have seen these bizarre weather patterns, like all these tornadoes popping up, and they don't realize that the government has been playing around with the weather all the way back to the 50s and 60s since they patented these things. We've seen it in Operation Popeye in Vietnam. They have the ability to manipulate and control the weather. They used it in Katrina. They've used it in other events in America, and you see these stories about 70 tornadoes just popping up out of thin air in some of these places, in the tornado belt and all this other stuff. And you just go, oh, yeah, we're supposed to believe it, right? Tornadoes are now popping up in states like that would never have it. Tornadoes before, New Jersey, Connecticut, places that aren't supposed to have tornadoes, and they just pop up, right? So just like all these towers popped up around us, these 5G towers that obviously are antennas, just like the HARP system. So the lack of fuel is just the beginning. The government just hiked the carbon tax. So think about this in terms of there isn't enough fuel. They're rationing fuel. They're telling people to not go and get excess fuel. This is all headed towards rationing, right? But there's also part of the carbon tax, okay? Because they're pricing people out, not with just raising the price of fuel. So they've just hiked the carbon tax right before all of this has happened. And in a nutshell, what it's costing people there, okay, the Ireland's carbon tax is mandatory. It's annually increasing every single year. It's only applied to fossil fuel suppliers, oil, gas, coal, etc. It's charged based on how much CO2 the fuel will release when burned, okay? So this has to do with how you heat your home, right? Because once they convince people that climate, that this stuff is real, which they've already done, the suckers out there believe everything they've seen. There's still people wearing masks, so we know that these people are living in a different alternate reality. I don't even know what to call it. They're in a vortex of just stupidity, blindness, naivety. I mean, you name it, they're in it. They have no idea what's really happening. We see these people around us, yet they think that they do because they repeat what they hear on the news, okay? So this will have to do with you rationing the amount of heat you could use in your home, the air conditioning you could use in your home because of your carbon footprint, which I'll get into in a few minutes. But this is what's going on in Ireland, okay? So it is about $83 per ton of CO2 that is actually used. And in America, for most of you who are in America watching, okay, this is the comparison is. So add on 73 cents per gallon to your gas. So when gas prices are $5 or $6 in places like California, and everybody's going nuts when it's $6.10, well, you might as well just add another 75 cents onto it because that's what the carbon tax does. Now, this really just prices people out of being able to afford gasoline. How about heating your home? It's an extra $1 per gallon of oil that you use to heat your home, or natural gas, right? Add several dollars per month with natural gas, right? So they're going to make natural gas even more expensive because people say, well, if you're going to do that, I'll just use my generator or something along those lines. No, you won't, because they'll price you out. And then eventually when they slap a carbon tax on it, it won't just be financial. It'll be rationing, where you're only allowed to use X amount because you have to be a good person, just like during COVID. You had to be a good person, right? Go get the vaccine, be a good person. All the suckers went and got vaccines. And then they're like, hey, suckers who got the vaccine, you're good people. But you know who are bad people? The people who didn't. Even though you're supposed to be immune to the so-called disease that's out there, go after those people who didn't get it and shame them to death. Be happy that they're losing their jobs. Be happy that, their children won't speak to them because their children are under the propaganda, or vice versa. The parents are under the propaganda and don't want to speak to their children or let them in their home unless they're vaccinated, right? It's as simple as that to get these people under this mind control. So you're talking about rationing your electricity next. When the carbon tax is slapped on, it's not just going to be a financial thing, because people look at it, they go, oh, what's an extra $1? What's an extra $2? Well, when the government goes, look, it's not about that anymore. We're running out. So you have to be a good person and you have to shut your electricity off at 8. It's about making you live as a slave. And people in America go, well, it's never going to come to America. We got Trump. Trump might go in for another term, break the rules here. Obviously, if a Dem is in power, Dem will just slap it on. and then the conservatives will go nuts over it. So this makes perfect sense because Donald Trump is playing the role of anti-globalist. He's anti-Bilderberg, which, by the way, is in Washington, D.C. as we speak. Of course, on American soil and not making any news headlines, pretending that Trump and these guys aren't in attendance. But these guys, he doesn't need to be in attendance. He could just Skype right in. But they're all in Washington, D.C. So all these people think that Trump is against this. He's the one bringing in, which is part of this war that you see. This is the war for Agenda 2030. Trump doesn't need to come out and say, hey, we need to go electric. He's already hinted at it, right? He said, oh, I'm anti-electric, but I love Elon Musk. I'm going to buy one of his ridiculous gay robo-cars that are complete embarrassments that we see on the road now, right? These futuristic turd mobiles that we see that can't even drive through the snow in the winter times. So absolutely hilarious. But they're all deceived by this. They don't think that Trump is in on it. They don't want to believe it is what it's really about. They don't want to believe it because they voted for it, they complied to it, and he's their hero. And then they pretend that he's not, that they don't worship him, but they do. So this is an article from Forbes. The Iran war has U.S. consumers paying a massive carbon tax. And that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Americans hate carbon tax. I mean, this is worded correctly. Americans hate carbon tax. Republicans really hate him. Yet one result of Trump's war on Iran is that Americans are now paying what amounts to a massive tax on fossil fuels. If Americans were asked to vote on such a tax, it would lose resoundingly, which of course we know it would, which is why they're doing this the way that they're doing it without telling you that they're flat out bringing in a carbon tax, right? If Americans were asked to vote, they would say no. Fewer than half of those surveyed in 2025 favored any monthly carbon fee, even one as low as $1, even Democrats, because people don't want to pay more. People don't want to pay more, but they don't realize that, well, if they don't put the word tax on it, then they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on, because they don't even look at the bills half the times they pay them, right? So it goes on to say Trump is an outspoken critic of alternative energy. He's aggressively ending government support for solar and wind power and killed tax breaks for electric vehicle buyers. Yet by driving up the cost of oil and gas, his attack on Iran may be doing more to boost interest in fossil fuel substitutes than even President Biden's many green energy subsidies. And that's exactly true. So he plays the role. I'm getting rid of wind power. I'm getting rid of solar. I want oil. I want more oil, right? What happened to when Trump was saying that we don't need other countries' oil? That we could just dig, baby, drill. Is that the gay expression that they told us? There's so much oil in America, we don't need other countries to rely on other countries. Yet we're obsessed with this, this ridiculousness over in Iran where they tell you that we need the Strait of Hormuz, right? I thought that we had all that we could possibly need. Well, of course, now, conveniently, everybody forgets that, right? And it's causing all of us to have to pay more in gas. And, of course, that quietly makes us pay more in carbon tax, which, of course, they don't tell you is really carbon tax. So it's a carbon tax by another name. In contrast, a well-designed carbon tax would be partially rebated to consumers. The rest would be available for the government to pay down its national debt or to fund, say, health insurance subsidies, national defense, or daycare. The effective carbon tax we now are paying is enormous. For example, the average price of regular unleaded gas at the pump went from $2.92 in January to $4.12. That is equal to more than 30% tax, while gasoline prices have increased by about $1.20 per gallon. A $40 per ton tax on carbon emissions would add far less. So remember when conservatives were going nuts about the price of gas when Biden was off? Now they're not saying anything. They're going, oh, who cares? To get rid of these guys, these all this stuff that they're trained to say of all these people in Iran, right? Oh, we're getting rid of them. It's really scary as most of them can claim to be Christians and they're okay with seeing images of, babies being executed, being blown up, having their limbs blown off. It's frightening, but they have no idea. They're just walking, talking zombies. So this is how you tax people without telling them you're taxing people. You just raise the prices. But again, I thought we had an endless amount of oil here. Why is our gas actually going up? Because it's called sabotage. Because you're not supposed to think or question what they're actually doing. You're supposed to stay on a dumbed down level and say, we got to defend Israel, even though they're the synagogue of Satan, because, they're God's chosen people. He who blesses Israel will be blessed. He who curses Israel will be cursed. Yet none of these people can interpret what modern day Israel is, which was, again, established in 1948 by many, many satanic Freemasons, including our president here in America, Mr. Truman, who proudly said once that his greatest honor was to be a Grand Master Mason, not President of the United States, which, again, by all accounts would make him guilty of treason. That's the definition of treason, when you take an oath to something other than your country when you're the president. When you take an oath to a secret society, that would be, make you guilty of treason. So the climate costs, again, lead to wealth transfer. They lead to eventually forcing people into what? Electric, which is what this is all about. That's part of Agenda 2030. It's not just about an electric car. Okay, that's what they hear that, then they're like, okay, and it's not just about eating the bugs. It's about full-on lifestyle control. So this is the narrative I talked about a couple weeks ago. Drivers wonder if they should go electric as the war spikes gas prices, right? Making it so you don't have a choice, right? Because you got to get to work. You can't afford gas. Oh, no, conveniently your gas station is out of gas. What are you going to do? Oh, it's getting frustrated. My boss is getting mad. Hey, look, they're pretty much giving away electric vehicles. They're giving away for free now. Oh, don't put any payment down for a couple years. That's what you're going to hear soon. Get the electric vehicle from General Motors. Because they're losing money. They'll tell you in the headlines they're losing money. So that's why they're going to offer you free cars. And then eventually you don't have to pay it until, 2030 is probably those will probably be deals that are out there because they'll be right in your face with Agenda 2030, right? Don't pay a cent until 2030. People go, well, I could be dead by 2030, so I get a free car. Might as well get it, right? And we'll build out more of the EV stations. But it's has nothing to do with climate change because anyone with common sense would know that while they claim that electric vehicles have a lower carbon footprint, they actually have a higher one due to the battery production, okay? According to their science with carbon footprint, it's way more toxic to the environment to build these electric vehicles because of the battery and the emissions from the battery. But they don't tell you that. They say, well, over a lifetime, an electric vehicle will be less carbon footprint than fossil fuels. So don't even think. And then people just stop thinking because they don't think anyway, right? And remember, 7 ways, all the stuff we've seen about reducing your carbon footprint. Driving is one of them. Right, changing you from that to electric, so controlling your movements. You can only go X amount of distance in an electric vehicle. You'll be topped off that you can only use X amount. You can only get 100 miles a month on your car, but it's all free with the electric, right? Home energy, that'll come down to, hey, you could have water and stuff, but we're going to shut it off at 8 o'clock. You can only use X amount of gallons, and you're going to go, well, how do they know how to do that? Well, I'll explain in a minute. Food, right? What you eat, because they're going to tell you, well, it costs, the carbon emission, as we've heard, of meat is so high, you got to move from meat and eat carrots, right? It's cheap. The carbon emission's better, right? They're training people in this thing. Traveling, forget about it. You're not flying anywhere anymore. That's part of the sabotage you see with everything going on with airplanes and air traffic control, right? They're making people afraid to fly. They did it during COVID. They wouldn't let you on a plane. People were afraid to go on the plane. They were going to get sick on the plane, right? Continually convincing you that it's a nightmare to travel, making it so you won't travel. Or countries like I talked about in Spain. Don't go to Spain. There's people protesting you for trying to go on vacation there. They'll throw bottles at your head, right? Oh, look at the airport. People are sleeping on the ground. TSA delays. Every single thing they could possibly think of to make you not travel because they want you to be imprisoned in your home. Water, you'll be rationing it. The stories we've seen in California, right? Oh, don't put your sprinklers on in the summer and let your grass die. Okay, well, I mean, we could look at the whole notion of grass and the American dream, how ridiculous it is to be a homeowner, right? People mulching and doing all this stuff, pointless stuff, right? Wasting money. But really the stories about rationing, watering your grass is about you eventually being conditioned into rationing your grass, and then it goes inside your home. Ration how much water you use. Ration how long you're in the shower, right? Then, of course, we have things like recycling, but fashion. You say, fashion? Why would that be on the carbon footprint? Well, how many uniforms do the prisoners have? Do you see them sometimes in orange and then switching over? They wearing Gucci purple? Are they switching outfits from time to time? No, they wear the same uniform, right? Well, you're going to live the same way because they're going to convince you without you realizing it that, well, you don't need 10 outfits. Everybody should have 1, 2, 3 outfits, and that's it. You should just interchange them during the year because of the carbon footprint. It's a lot of carbon emissions to make clothes, and all the suckers are all great. And then they'll look around and they'll go, wait a minute. We are no longer allowed to really drive. We're not allowed to fly. We have energy rationing where they tell us to turn our lights off at 8. We're eating slop. Right? Food that's made from, that we don't even know what it's made from. It's made in a laboratory, right? Okay. We're only allowed to shower for 5 minutes a day, and we have 3 outfits. What does it sound like? It sounds like how a prisoner lives, right? Well, prisoners don't travel. Prisoners have lights out at 8. Prisoners eat slop, right? You've seen videos or at least movies where they're lining up and they're slopping some nasty thing on the plate. You're like, ugh, right? Oh, interesting. Well, that's exactly what we're headed towards. Of course, we know that they have 5 minutes of shower. Usually in that 5 minutes, they drop the soap, which I'm sure is part of the carbon footprint, wanting you to drop the soap so the government could sneak in behind. And they only have a couple outfits that they wear, right? Yeah, it's life as a prisoner. And they tell you this, and they've told you this at the World Economic Forum, how the goal is to control what you eat, whether it's coffee, whether it's meat, whether it's dairy, and of course, how it's all about a personal carbon footprint tracker, which is why you see this showing up now on your bank statements, on your credit card statements. They're conditioning you into just accepting because they don't expect you to realize what it is, right? The carbon that they're trying to limit, the carbon that they're trying to stop is you, okay? Carbon. What do you breathe out? Carbon. Okay? You're the carbon they're trying to prevent. And when you are going to be allowed out for recess in the future, when you're allowed to go out for 2 hours a week, you're going to probably be told to wear a mask, just like you were told a couple years ago, because your carbon emissions. And you might say that's insane, but it's true. Listen to these psychopaths tell you how they want to control your lives.
If 1 billion people stop eating meat, I tell you, it has a big impact.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform?
Climate change is caused for 20% by meat and dairy. So the producers of meat and dairy should pay for the damage they cause.
The coffee that we all drink emits between 15 and 20 tons of CO2 per ton of coffee. Every time we drink coffee, we are basically putting CO2 into the atmosphere.
And I predict that we will have proteins not coming from meat in the future. They will probably taste even better. So why are we trying to mimic meat if we can have a better taste?
So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
So again, it's about full control over every single thing in your life. And you might go, well, I don't get it, Call. How would they ever be able to do that? They don't know what I'm doing behind closed doors. Well, they do for starters, because you have all this stuff in your home, right? And Alexa, your cell phone. Let's just use your cell phone, because you might say, I don't have that crap, that Alexa or the Ring on my door. Well, you have a cell phone. Okay, anyone with common sense knows they're listening on the phone. It's going right to the NSA. So if you started talking your home about doing something really, really bad or committing a really bad crime against the government, they'll show up at your door and you'll be like, how did they find out? And they'll just be like, oh, we heard people were saying you were acting strange. We want to talk to you. They won't admit that they're listening on the devices because they don't want an uprising to occur, but they are. And that, of course, is all part of the Patriot Act, which was part of the reason they had to commit 9/11. You know, I mean America on themselves, along with Israel, excuse me. So you might say, how could they do all this and enforce this? Well, it starts with a smart home, right? You think all this stuff is for your convenience. Oh, your security camera, your energy, your air conditioning, your television, your washer and dryer. Yes, people have smart washer and dryers. That's how insane it is. They can't get up and turn it. They think it's convenient to be able to put the clothes in, but they don't want to press a button. They want to go sit down and turn it on when they want. Same with the refrigerator. None of these people are actually asking what you would need a smart refrigerator for, right? They go, oh, well, it's got a little TV on it, so that's cool. I'm going to get one. And then, of course, eventually they'll stop selling all the old appliances, which is what we're seeing. They're forcing people into the smart appliances like they did with the cell phones, forcing you into a smartphone versus a flip phone. And then people just go, oh, what's the big deal? I can control my lights on my phone. It's all fun. Yeah, but if you can control your lights on your phone, who else can control it, right? What do you think? You're the only one that has access? With the internet is yours, that there's no man behind the curtain who could have full control over all of it and actually shut off everybody's if everybody's is controlled by Wi-Fi, right? Of course they can, but nobody thinks that far, because even though they're all looking at these politicians like Democrats hate Trump, Republicans hated Biden, if your party is in control, you don't look at it that way. You go, that'll never happen. But if you put the other guy in power, like if we put Biden back in, all the Republicans would be like, we got to get the smart devices out. But right now they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. Trump would never do that, right? He's doing it right in front of you. And you might say, well, that's just appliances, right? No. How about all these people who put smart meters on their homes, right? Smart meters on their homes. Now we've seen obviously what's occurred, people's houses catching fire. Look no further than places like California, where you see some houses standing and then you see lines and rows of homes that are burnt completely to the ground. Because as I've covered in videos, again, available on the website, these are bombs or ticking time bombs. They could crank up the capacity of it and it literally could blow up your home, have your home catch fire. That's what these things are put on there for. In addition, of course, to being able to control over, right? Because they can control and manage your what? How much energy you're using every day. So they just go over and they go, look, the government has now said you can only use 600 kilowatts a day. You were up in the 700 range. We're going to put a block that you can only go up to 600 now. And once you hit 600, we're going to turn your electricity off. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it because you don't know how to hardwire it yourself or you're dependent on the government, who of course runs and controls all these energy companies that you think are independent. Oh, it's just an energy. Yeah. How convenient. Somebody just owns an energy company, right? Some guy came up with the idea. He's like, I'm going to own it. I'm going to start my own energy company. It's got no affiliation with the government. I'm just going to make money, right? Government has full control over all of it. And then even the locks in the home is one of the funniest things. People putting smart locks in their home. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is great. I could just do it with my phone, right? Well, you don't think once you're in the home, they could lock you inside? I mean, remember the story I covered with Amazon, where they talked about supposedly a delivery man for Amazon came and somebody shouted through the intercom or whatever, the Ring microphone, a racist thing, and the Amazon driver immediately got on the phone and it got relayed up to Jeff Bezos of Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and then what they do? They locked him in, they shut off all his things, locked him in his home, right? Little test story that they put out there to see how people would respond. People weren't that upset about it. They were like, oh, okay, well, you shouldn't say something racist then. Don't say something racist. Oh, you're not upset that they have the ability to control your locks, that Amazon could literally lock you in and then shut off your Amazon devices in your home, whether it's your refrigerator or something else that you have, your electricity through Amazon, the Amazon app, whatever you're controlling your lights with, right? No, they shut off, and all the people talking about was, how could somebody say something racist? You're not concerned about these people shutting you. People are applauding it. They're like, Amazon should do that based on behavior, right? And as Larry Fink told us, it's all about behavioral control, controlling people's behaviors, right? And that's what all this is going to lead to. And it goes further. It goes into all the supply chains, right? You look at the food supply. John Deere equipped with Starlink. So you want to be an independent farmer? Well, you got to get a new tractor. Your old tractor from the 90s broke down. And John Deere won't fix it for you, right? Because you got to go through John Deere according to the contracts to fix it. And John Deere won't fix it. They go, hey, you got to get a new one. Maybe we'll give it to you for free. And someone will go, oh, I'm going to get a free tractor. Right. Connected to Starlink, right? And you know what Starlink's doing? Oh, they're doing hands-free harvesting thanks to Starlink. They're running these John Deere machines through Wi-Fi with no humans needed, right? And then, of course, we'll see the carbon tax being used for high food prices, right? Meat will be more expensive. It will continue to price out. And as I've covered, even Yale, right? Skull and Bones themselves, are we ready for a global carbon tax? That's the end game. They might go, none of these people are going to be in it. Oh, they're not? Donald Trump's best friend, Elon Musk, or, oh, it's not his best friend anymore, according to the high school drama that they show us in the news that people care more about than what the government's actually doing to us. Oh, Elon Musk, the only action needed to resolve climate change is a carbon tax. They all want the carbon tax, okay? He says we should not, for example, impose draconian laws on farmers or make citizens uncomfortable by limiting air conditioner use, keep tax revenue constant, but shift to tax what is probably bad CO2, like alcohol. Cigarettes are taxed more than fruits and vegetables. So that's him pivoting away from a carbon tax, still wanting a carbon tax, but saying, ooh, but bad behavior. So if you smoke cigarettes, no, you're going to get taxed more, and maybe we'll tax you on your electricity or et cetera, right? They're just making it sound like it's a financial tax, but it's more. Oh, you smoke cigarettes? Well, guess what? You get X amount of privileges to go outside because your carbon footprint is higher, right? That's what they're telling you in these messages, right? And this goes back to Kissinger and all these psychopaths. Who controls the food supply? Controls the people. Who controls the energy? Control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. They control it all. This is all about the United Nations. Donald Trump is in on it. They're all part of it. Tracking your energy for Agenda 2030, okay? Tracking your carbon footprint. Having full control over where you go and all of your movements. Digital enslavement and then control of your movements. Getting you into these electric vehicles is pivotal in all of that. Because you can't drive free. You can't just today go, I'm going to go from New York City and I'm going to drive to California. I don't have a job. I got a couple grand in the bank, save $10,000 saved up. And you go, I want to get out of here. I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to go cross country. I'm going to look at all these beautiful national parks or all the open country in Montana or Wyoming. Oh, wait a minute. Well, when this is in place, you're not leaving your bubble. You're not going to be able to leave state lines. Everybody's going to be trapped where they are, and they're going to be given credits of how far they can travel per month, right? So you might say, well, what about work? I got to go to work. Well, they'll let you do FaceTime. They'll let you do Skype. They'll let you do all these other things that people have got. Zoom, okay? Didn't you see they just conditioned you for the carbon footprint and the carbon tax with COVID? Getting you used to doing this stuff online where people were like, oh, this is great. I don't have to show up at work today. I can just go to work. Remember all the stories? Oh, they're making fun of it, like getting people used to it. Oh, the talk show hosts are doing the shows in suits, but they have their underwear on, right? And everyone laughing, ha. Well, that's part of it. Enslaving you in your home with the smart technology. They're listening, they're monitoring, they're tracking. And then it's a privilege for you to leave the house. But you're only going to have X amount of time to do it. Remember, rationing, control, Agenda 2030. And that's what we're seeing if we look over in Ireland. This is the beginning. They're running out of fuel. The prices are high. Then you calculate in a carbon tax. And these people are starting to go, what are we going to do? The government's not budging. Well, I guess we're going to have to get electric vehicles. I guess the farmers are going to have to get electric farming equipment, of course, with Starlink on it. So first we'll get them to get it. Then we'll just, We'll just tell them eventually that they can't use it, or we will make it available to them electric, right? We'll just make it available to the government so they can control the food supply chain and you can't farm independently. This is the war on civilians. This is the war of Agenda 2030 coming to America. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.